For several weeks now, we have, of course, been pointing out how corrupt this hush money case against Donald Trump in New York City actually is. Of course, when you actually hear it laid out in the halls of Congress so plainly, it's really quite surprising. So what we're going to see today is Harriet Hageman calling this out in spectacular fashion. But before we get to the video, please like and comment so we can break through the YouTube algorithm. Let's jump into it.
The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized.
Well, thank you. And if it seems like there might be a dog in this hunt on the other side, what you need to understand is that Mr. Goldman, the novice representative from New York, actually does have a personal stake in this case. He has stated that he has been involved with the Bragg case, helping to prepare Mr. Cohen for his testimony. So he is quite closely aligned with an admitted and convicted liar and perjurer. He's also paid the Judge Merchant's daughter's firm over $150,000 for her services. So I think we've got quite a conflict of interest from Mr. Dan Goldman, the novice representative from New York. And just one other thing to keep in mind when considering the hostility from the folks on the other side of this aisle is that the ranking member of this
Mr. Chair, I would move to have that
was Jeffrey Epstein's
fixer. Phrase taken down.
The ranking member was Jeffrey Epstein's fixer. So I think that might give you some idea of why you see this hostility.
Hang on, the ranking member is recognized.
I would ask that the statements regarding the conflict of interest related to Mr. Goldman be stricken down from the record. Engaging in personal personalities.
In your 14-minute and 14-second opening statement, you called the former president, current candidate for the office of president of the United States, all kinds of names. I think
he's not a member of this.
I understand he's not a member,
and
but
that's what I'm asking.
A former president. What I'm saying is we should all be careful about it. I think the gentlelady from Wyoming was just stating facts that are in the news report.
She accused him of a conflict of interest on the committee during the hearing. I ask that that be stricken down.
Gentlelady's point of order is overruled. The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized.
Okay, that was a little bit spicy. Let me kind of tell you what happened because they were talking over each other. You might not have heard everything, okay? So you have Representative Hageman actually calling out Representative Dan Goldman from New York City. Now, why in the world would she do this? Because he's actually helping to prepare Michael Cohen for his testimony in Trump's hush money trial, right? But not only that, he's also paying the firm of Judge Marchand's daughter $150,000 for their services. Okay, so Judge Marchand, of course, is the judge in charge of the hush money trial. His daughter runs a, political fundraising marketing firm. All right, so not only is he helping the prosecution by training Michael Cohen to go in and give his testimony, he's also paying the daughter of the judge big money. The conflict of interest is so blatant. It's right out there. And it's happening in the halls of Congress, now being mixed in with this New York dirty trial. And of course, what you also have is Virgin Islands Delegate Plaskett comes in and says, we need a point of order here. You can't attack other members of Congress like that because there are lots of rules talking about, decorum and diplomacy and all that stuff in Congress, right? So she can't come out there and accuse him of having a conflict of interest. And of course, Jim Jordan just kind of shuts that down and says, all she's doing is reading the reporting that is going on with Representative Goldman. She's not attacking him. She's just reading the report, okay? And also what's hilarious is Hageman comes back and says, hey, guess what, Plaskett? You actually received $30,000 from Epstein. Yes, the Epstein who ended up, right, okay. She's actually receiving money from him. She was his fixer, supposedly. So this whole thing just explodes and it's being laid out on the floor of Congress, therefore recorded for posterity.
Thank you. Mr. Hamilton, would you agree that gag orders on trial participants were created with the intent of securing a defendant's right to a fair trial and ensure efficient administration of justice?
It's precisely correct. And it's in fact usually intended to prevent the prosecution from making extrajudicial statements that are going to be prejudicial to the defendant's rights.
And Mr. Trustee, I think that you testified that in all of your years of experience, you've never seen a circumstance where a defendant had a gag order imposed against them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And would it be fair to say that while such an order is intended to guarantee a defendant's Sixth Amendment right, it also at certain times could raise First Amendment issues?
It does.
Okay. In Bragg's political persecution of Donald Trump, Judge Merchant instituted an unconstitutional gag order against the defendant, President Trump. Yet Judge Merchant has levied no such order against any of the other trial participants like Michael Cohen, who continue to publicly attack Mr. Trump. Mr. Hamilton, is the gag order issued by Judge Merchant a significant departure from the normal order of business? And does it reveal the First and Sixth Amendment tensions which underlie this case?
Most certainly does.
Okay. And why does President Trump face such a legally questionable gag order in this case? Well, simply put, it's because it is a classic example of lawfare being employed by Democrats against their political opponent, weaponizing the various branches and levels of government, something that is we have seen in the last 8 years that has been absolutely shocking to the conscience.
Before we continue, I do want to mention, what are you going to do with your dollar? Joe Biden, of course, is printing out more cash than ever, causing massive inflation and devaluation of our currency. So how can you protect your investments? Well, you can go to Genesis Gold Group and convert your 401k or IRA into a gold-backed retirement account. And of course, you can access them by going to angryteachergold.com or by calling 1-800-200-4653 to take control of your future. Get gold-backed securities and get back on the gold standard. Protect your money. And don't forget that Genesis Gold Group is a faith-based organization, so you can rest assured that you are not investing with a woke company. Now let's go ahead and get back to it. And here, of course, she's going after the irregular behavior of Judge Marchand, right? These gag orders always seem to go one way, right? They're not supposed to be used on the defendants. They're supposed to be used on the prosecution to protect the defendant. So why in the world is Donald Trump treated differently? I don't know. It's almost like there's a whole bunch of collusion going on in this case between all the leftists involved. And yeah, she also mentions that Cohen was not gagged at this point in time. And Judge Marchand actually did come out and do that later on, because for weeks, Cohen was allowed to go on his podcast, go on interviews and badmouth Trump out in the open, while Trump, of course, was in risk of being thrown in jail for defending himself. But at least something did happen eventually. You have to at least uphold some semblance of fairness in this trial, right?
DA Bragg resurrected a zombie case and is using a novel legal theory which has not even been explained to the defendant or the jury. He selected Matthew Colangelo, as lead prosecutor, a former Biden DOJ official and DNC consultant, and Judge Merchant, who made campaign donations to President Biden and the Democrat Party during the 2020 election, and whose daughter's firm worked for the Biden and now Harris campaigns, is overseeing the case and imposing speech restrictions on a person Judge Merchant called, quote, possibly the next president of the United States. Judge Merchant went so far in the last 2 weeks as threatening to jail a former president and presumptive major party nominee for violating an order which infringes on his free speech rights. Writing in The Federalist, Tom Christ analyzes how lawfare offers benefits and a means of victory regardless of the outcome of the courtroom, which is causing as much pain as possible and treating the defendant like an enemy versus the defendant. I want that to sink in. Watching Judge Merchant, it is very apparent that he is treating President Trump as an enemy, not a party and not a defendant. Mr. Hamilton, do you think the gag order falls into this playbook and serves an additional lawfare benefit for the left in that it can be used to enact an even larger legal burden on Donald Trump for simply exercising his right to free speech?
Yes, I do. And in fact, quite frankly, when you have a gag order like that, or when you have abuses of processes like this, as my colleagues have alluded to before, the pain in the process is the goal. That's really the goal here. Whether they get a conviction, whether they get any kind of civil fine or judgment, it's not necessarily the ultimate objective. The ultimate objective is to cause pain to the political opponent, and that's what they're doing to Donald Trump.
One of the things that I have observed as an attorney who was a trial attorney for 34 years, is that Judge Merchant is making such blatant reversible errors. He absolutely knows that if there is a conviction in this case, it will be reversed on appeal. And it's as though he is attempting to do that because he knows that no such appeal would actually take place prior to November. Yet he would have a conviction on the books, which is the classic, and I think in this case exposes the way in which they are using lawfare against President Biden or against President Trump.
Look at the trail being set up there. Not only do you have Joe Biden at the top, okay, you have the Department of Justice, who one of their prosecutors is now working for Alvin Bragg in New York City, but also the judge's daughter, right? We're back to Lauren Marchand, who runs that firm. She also did a whole bunch of work for Joe Biden's campaign. And now all of a sudden, everything's coming together in this show trial in New York City. And as is rightly pointed out by Representative Hageman there, it's that he just wants a conviction before the election because all of these mistakes he's making will be overturned. But once you have that perception in the minds of the people, like, oh, Donald Trump is convicted, oh, that might really damage him in the general. So we'll have to see, of course, what happens. But this whole thing is being exposed in the halls of Congress for public record, for everyone to see, and for it, of course, to be saved for posterity. So as usual, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there, people, because they're coming after you.